Welcome. Today's video we're going to take a look at Time Off by Jonathan Fitch and Max Frenzel. It's a practical guide to building your rest ethic and finding success without the stress. This was recommended to me by, who was it? Effective Remote Work. I'm blanking on the name of that. Justin DeRose, as a good book and why he is taking some time off from his YouTube channel and trying to have just trying to have a good rest for himself. So before we dive in, a few ways you can support the channel. If you want, you can become a member at curtismchale.ca/membership, where you get all my courses for free and you get my paid newsletter. Or you can take one of my courses individually at curtismchale.ca/education. There you can just pick a course to take. Buckle up, let's look at what it means to take time off well. Now, most of us are going to say that we want time off, that we want to rest. That's what we'd really like. The truth is a bit more complex than that, though, is that we produce far more than generations in past did, and yet we still have a really hard time resting. Now, part of this is going to be addressed in Time Off by John Fitch and Max Frenzel. This book is intended to help us be okay with what they call noble leisure, so that we can live a life without being overworked all the time. Before we dive into the whole book, though, we need to define what is noble leisure. And noble leisure is the idea that you do something relaxing, you do something for yourself, you do something that's not work, specifically just because you want to do it. There's no benefit, there's no nothing. You just do it because that's something you want to do. It doesn't have to have a benefit, and you're not resting merely so that you can be productive later. You're just doing something for yourself. Another big point that I really liked that the authors kind of hung their book on is that you need a rest ethic as strong as your work ethic. If you're going to work really, really, really hard, you also need to be resting really, really, really well. And just thinking you're going to work hard, continue to pull from the same vat of inexhaustible energy all the time without ever replenishing it is clearly not going to happen. Another interesting book that talked about this was Rest by Alex Sujun Kim Pang, which examined how poor we are at resting and how poor society is at reinforcing rest and allowing us to rest on our work. Now, the book starts off with really looking at how leisure turned into something bad, how rest turned into something bad. And they say it started in the 1930s as we really started to sell time instead of finished goods. And that during that, realistically, as soon as we did that, any hour that we weren't actually working was just a lost hour, something that was not productive and was bad for us, as opposed to selling a finished good where as long as it was finished, it was good to go. And they even looked at Roman and Greek times where they basically felt if you had to work, you weren't doing something right. That leisure was the highest ideal, that it wasn't being busy like we have now. It was really being restful, taking the time for yourself. That was seen as the highest ideal. When we looked at Rest by Alex Sujun Kim Pang, we learned that a lot of us work in complex, open-ended projects that have no real end in sight, no real big productive payoff. And so we often use hours, busyness as productivity, hours as the simplest measure to just say, hey, we were productive. I put in this many hours today. When the truth is, it's not accurate. One bad hour is, or 10 bad hours when you have nothing left is not as useful as one good hour. Looking at busyness as a proxy for productivity is merely a way to make us look like we're productive and mask how bad the processes are at most of our jobs, because they're really bad. Now, after trying to establish how we got into this spot where noble leisure isn't a good thing, where leisure is bad and we frown upon people who take too much rest, they highlight a bunch of points on how to rest well to help you really dive in and do it well for yourself. So one of the first ones that I'm going to highlight is on rest. Many people look at rest as something you do with little or no relation to work. Being rest, taking the time for yourself, recharging physically, but mentally as well, creatively, is important to the whole process. Like, I cannot continue to produce videos, I cannot continue to review books if I don't have a good rest ethic to go with it, to recharge, so that I'm not continually pulling out of the same creative well. Now, sleep is also part of rest, and that's the second point I'm going to highlight. It can often be seen as just purely rest, but the authors of this book highlight that we're all different chronotypes. So some of us are morning people, some of us are evening people, and that matters in how we work and when we do a good job of working. Daniel Pink's book, When, did a really good job of covering this as well, and I'll probably delve into this subject a lot deeper. So if you're interested in the timing of events in life, dealing with when, then you'll find a link to that article below when I wrote a review of that. The big point on sleep that the authors are trying to make is that you need to know yourself and your sleep schedule. Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? When is the prime time for your good, productive part of the day? And during that time, you need to focus and work and stay focused. And the other times you need to not beat yourself up. Like, that's it. I'm a morning person. I often record in the mornings. I often do my big, deep thinking work in the mornings. In the afternoons, I'll do video editing or I'll do some email, and I won't worry about big, deep, productive, creative work because I know I'm not at my best then and I don't need to beat myself up over it. Another excellent point is that we can either expand our life or have a better life by adding things or by subtracting things. And unfortunately, we often default to adding things. Of course, we want to do this next new thing. We want to add this thing to our life, to our schedules. When the truth is, we're most often better subtracting. I said a long time ago that no is the most productive word you have. Because if you haven't said no to many things, you can't take that one really stellar opportunity that comes along. This happened with my wife recently. She interviewed at a number of skating clubs all around BC, all around Ontario, and she said no to all of them until we have the one that's coming up where we'll be moving to Prince George in a few weeks. That was by far the best option for us, but we could only take it because we had said no to ones that were good, but not excellent. When it comes to talking about technology, the authors really cover ground that I think has been covered better and deeper in Digital Minimalism and The Shallows. Again, both of those are entire books devoted to this topic. In short, when it comes to your technology, the software you use, the devices you use, you need to ask yourself, does this device really serve me and the goals I'm trying to accomplish? And if it doesn't, cut it. It doesn't matter what other people say or what some business guru says you have to be on Instagram or anything like that. Cut it. If it doesn't further your goals, don't worry about it. That's actually one of the reasons I love working on my iPad, because it is a focused environment. I've set it up to have no distractions. I've done a very good job of that, and then I can focus without, cluttered windows, without a bunch of other stuff that always feels to me in macOS or in Windows like it's distracting me. I actually talked a lot more about this in my course, Building a Practice of Productivity. You'll find links to that below. As you go through your day, as you use your technology, just take a minute to evaluate it. Do you really need this app? Do you really need this tool? Or is it just distracting you and taking away from the good goals, the good productive leisure that you'd prefer? I know Instagram is a killer one for me. I'll often scroll, even YouTube actually, I'll often scroll through shorts or through all these things that don't matter, and then I'll be disappointed that I didn't read a book instead. So I've really worked hard to keep my devices in my office and not take them elsewhere or have them on our charging station upstairs where I can't be looking at YouTube because it's out of my way. The final point I'm going to highlight is that society's rules are old. Lots of them were made up by some old white guy that, hundreds of years ago, and they have no application to today. Even if we look at the 8-hour workday, which, we kind of cut ourselves down to in the 1930s-ish, does it really impact today? Is it really the best type of work to do for the knowledge worker? I would say in most cases, it's not. You probably only have 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 hours of good, productive, creative work in your day, good, hard thinking work in your day. And after that, you're just occupying a chair to make your manager feel good because they have somebody to manage. Now, for all the good I saw in the book, I think there's one pretty big failure, which you see in a lot of productivity books. I've seen it in Cal Newport's books. I've seen it as the one, So Good They Can't Ignore You. I saw it in that specifically, I remember. And it's that a lot of this is all, I would say, white guy productivity. Looking at the examples of productivity from people who are rich. They don't have to take care of their kids. They don't have family to take care of. They can pay someone to take over all these things for them. And so you should follow their pattern. And it doesn't work like that for most people. Even me, clearly a white guy. I got kids to take care of. I have to be done every day, work at 3 o'clock. We don't hire babysitters. There's a bunch of things we don't do that I couldn't apply a lot of the items or the tips in this book because I don't do these things, because I don't have that support. And I know there are many people that are far worse off than me, especially women, far worse off, especially people of color, far worse off in this respect than me. You can read all these productivity hacks and you realize none of them apply to me because that is not even a credible life. So the question, should you read time off? I feel hesitant. I feel hesitant mainly because of my big fault, because there's a lot of white guy productivity in here. White guys say you should do this. They never had to take care of their kids. This famous person who never had to take care of kids and was rich, this is how they did it. You should do it too. And that always makes it feel like these books fall apart to me. They don't have like hey, you're a single mom with a couple kids. You're a person of color. You're an indigenous person, anything like that. They don't cover any of these scenarios because they don't have experience in it. And they assume that everyone, I think this is where Cal Newport falls in too, that everyone can just do the things the way they did as white guys. So I don't actually know if these authors are both white guys or anything, but that's how it feels to me. Like it's white guy productivity. So I'm going to say there's some good ideas, but I think that it needs to push further. I think these productivity books really need to start pushing further into bigger topics and how society supports people who aren't just white guys. How you do this if you have a bunch of kids to handle, if you are a single parent. And this book does not do it. So while I liked a bunch of it, I also think it has a big fault and only is going to hit a very narrow section of people. And that may or may not be you. So decide if it's you. That's it. If you liked the video, thumbs up below. If you loved it, subscribe, hit the bell. YouTube will let you know something happened. If you want to support the channel, best way to do that is to become a member. curtismchale.ca/membership, where you get to see like all my note-taking courses, my time blocking course is coming up. I'll be uploading that later today. Again, it's already on Skillshare. If you have a Skillshare account, you can actually find the links to my courses below on Skillshare as well. That's it. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening to a book about white guy productivity.